Hello, my name is Mordred Viking, and I'd like to welcome you to this dev diary on armies, sectors, messages, and more. This has been written by Ofe and KC, but I will be the one reading it, so just imagine that this is in their voices. Before we get started though, I would just like to announce that the 3.8 Gemini co-op open beta that we talked about last week is now open. So be sure to check out the description below for links to those feedback threads. We'll be collecting feedback and out-of-sync errors until the end of April. However, this week we'll be exploring some of the improvements that are not in the co-op open beta, but are planned for the full 3.8 release. So let's start with Ofe. Hello again, it's me, Ofe. Today I will share some information about what I've been working on since my previous dev diary about AI. Today I have 7 smaller side projects to present that will be coming with the 3.8 free patch. The Army Builder, Rally Troops, Ground Combat and Bombardment tweaks, Science Ship Automation, Capital World Designations, Fleet Manager improvements, and a sector editor. First, I have 3 changes related to ground combat and orbital bombardment, seeing how the community is split between a ground combat rework or just removing it completely. I opted instead to make everyone disappointed and give you what nobody asked for: quality of life and a slight rebalance. First up is the Army Builder. This is a tool designed to make it much easier to build and gather assault armies for an upcoming war. This tab is available on any starbase in a sector, and armies recruited via this tab will gather at the starbase. Construction is spread out across all planets in the sector, and there is also a control-click option to more quickly queue up more construction. In cases where you would like to reinforce an existing fleet of assault armies instead of simply gathering them at a starbase, I've also added a mode for assault army fleets called Rally Troops. New troops will then automatically try and merge with this fleet regardless of whether they're built via the Army Builder or the old method of recruitment from a planet. Speaking of planets, I've also added a deploy and orbit checkbox to planets for a use case where you want to recruit assault armies to defend the planet on the frontier without them first deploying in orbit, meaning you then have to manually go back and land them again afterwards. Next up is changes to bombardment. If you really hate ground combat, then I've got good news for you. Orbital bombardment will now be able to take control of planets in most cases when they have completely killed all defending troops. There are some exceptions. For example, your pops will never surrender to an enemy that are fanatical purifiers, as they would be purged anyway. There is also a policy where you can refuse enemy planets that would like to surrender to you. However, your defenseless planets will still prefer to surrender to non-genocidal or hive mind enemies to spare their own lives. Further, there are some tweaks to ground combat and orbital bombardment to create a trade-off between bombing and invading. Bombing planets is now much more devastating than it used to be. More pops will die, and buildings and districts will be ruined in the process. This also adds a trade-off between the different bombardment stances. Doing selective bombardment will be slower, but fewer pops will die in the process compared to indiscriminate bombardment. Orbital bombardment will now scale with the amount of ships bombarding. The first 100 fleet-size ships will do full damage. After that, every additional 100 fleet size will add 70% of that efficiency. For example, 300 fleet capacity worth of ships will deal 100% plus 70% plus 49%, equaling a 219 total worth of bombardment damage. This effect is scaled based on the number of pops of buildings and the planet's size, where highly populated small planets will suffer greater losses compared to large, sparsely populated planets. Ground combat is also more devastating to planets than it used to be, but much less so than bombarding. The effect of collateral damage from enemy army types has also been adjusted. Previously, the collateral damage on army types was a linear value and not a multiplier, which meant that in practice, high damage, high collateral units such as xenomorphs could effectively do less collateral damage on the planet compared to normal troops because they would kill the enemy troops more quickly. This is no longer the case, as collateral damage modifier now acts as a multiplier to any damage dealt. Planetary capital buildings now spawn 0, 4, 8, or 16 defensive armies for free based on the tier of the building. To summarize, the design philosophy for all of these changes to ground combat and bombardment. Ground combat and orbital bombardment will now be a bigger part of the game, since Big Planet will automatically have some defenses. Building armies and using them to invade planets will be much easier by using the Army Builder and the Rally Troops functionality. Small planets with 1 to 25 pops will be prime candidates to be taken by orbital bombardment alone, removing the need to having to manually invade each insignificant planet or habitat. Previously, I made the construction ship automation and planetary automation settings, which was well received by the community, so for 3.8 I've decided to make improvements to the science ship automation. Now, when you click on science ship automation, you can enable or disable the modules you like. Explore systems simply mean exploring the galaxy by entering systems, which will discover any planets and hyperlanes in there, but the other settings should be self-explanatory. The default settings are explore systems and survey systems, which are the same functionality as before 3.8. For science ships that are already automated, you can see which modules they have enabled by hovering the automation button. I've gone a bit outside of my own designation as a programmer and dabbled a bit with content design. There are 4 new capital world designations coming in 3.8 for non-hive minds. They are Forge Capital, Factory Capital, Trade Capital, and Capital Extraction World. These designations are not part of the automatic colony designation system, and your capital world will never change designation on its own. Rather, you must explicitly change the designation yourself in order to avoid instantaneous collapse of a player economy when unpausing the game. They are not revolutionary in their design, but rather they are the combined effects of the capital designation paired with a specialization. So, for example, the Capital Forge World designation will give you all of the bonuses as a normal capital designation, but instead of the 10% output for all jobs, it gives a 20% metallurgist output, as well as shifting the consumer goods jobs into alloy jobs, just like any other forge designations. So for everyone like me who wanted to make a forge, factory, trade, or base resource capital world, now you can. Overall, the fleet manager served its purpose and works. Sort of. Together with Casey, more from her later, we made some reorganization of the UI and fixed some annoying bugs. Here is what the fleet manager looks like now. Some notable changes are that the list of fleets is now much larger than it used to be. Now you can see 12 simultaneous fleets instead of 6. There is a new button to copy a fleet template, and you can now more easily delete fleet templates by using the delete and enter keys, and doing so will no longer select the first fleet in the list and scroll the scroll bar to the top. The ship designer and the fleet managers have also been merged into one item on the sidebar and are accessible via tabs as easily as to switch between them. We've also added this new button, which originally was designed and implemented for the AI, but then I figured it'd be useful for players too. Since the release of the Overlord expansion, the ability to edit sectors was sorely missed, so better late than ever, I've made a tool which allows the player to freely move systems between adjacent sectors as long as they're in range of the sector capital. The sector editor tool can be accessed either via the planet view or the planet and sector view. Opening the sector editor will enter into the sector edit map mode. Here you can edit the sector either via the galaxy map icons or using the UI on the left. While in the sector editor mode, you can easily switch between editing different sectors by clicking on the icons in the galaxy map. This comes with a few adjustments to requirements for creating sectors. For example, it's no longer possible to create a sector that is too close to an existing sector capital, even if the systems that are in between are unclaimed, meaning that it's no longer possible to release one of your guaranteed habitable worlds as a vassal. Further, all of the old counterintuitive rules regarding which planet would belong to which sector capital have been removed, which previously resulted in very strange looking sectors when players would try to delete and recreate sectors to attempt to fix their sector borders. Currently, the sector editor gives a lot of control to the players, meaning it's even easier than before to create one system, one planet, vassals. It is now also possible to fix sector border map gore. I trust everyone will use this power responsibly. But wait, there's more! And now we're going to switch over to KC. Hey everyone, I'm KC, your favourite UX designer you have never heard of. Usually working from the shadows up in Arctic, I've descended upon you to shed some light on more quality of life things we've been working on in the past couple of weeks. Rebindable keys for the side menu. Okay, not rebindable, but close enough. We have made it possible to customize the order of the items in the menu, and thus decide which of them will have the F1 to F10 hotkeys. Technology? Yeah, got it. Toggle edit mode by clicking on the little gear icon. Something of a pet peeve of mine since I started on Stellaris a couple of years ago was the lack of different scales of urgency when the game presents information. Since everything is considered equally important, in order to cut through the noise, every new message has to scream as loud as the others. Or louder. This has led to a barrage of pop-ups and notifications that we all love to hate. So what we decided to do to fix this, of course, is make even more notifications. Or rather, make a new system to add different notifications. Allow you to disable notifications. Yes, message settings is coming to Stellaris. The new notifications are called toast notifications. Cue bread-related puns. Because of how they pop up and disappear automatically, like bread in a toaster. This system will be used to communicate things that are low priority, things you don't need to act on but might want to know about, and feedback on things you've done. Ding! Leader ready. My hope is that we can convert old messages to use this system while it makes sense to do so. System surveyed, build complete, etc. As well as allow for customization on how different messages should be presented. Pick your poison, or just turn it off completely. Message settings can be accessed directly from the notification toast you no longer wish to see, by control-clicking on it, or from the game menu under Settings and then Messages. But wait! There's more! No, really, there's actually more. But since this was chunky enough, I guess we'll be back later. Stay tuned. We've got a lot left to go through before the Gemini release, so I'll see you next Tuesday for our next Dev Diary. Thanks everyone for watching, hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe here for more official Stellaris news and content and updates and gameplay and stuff. See you next time. Bye bye.